Good morning, and thank you for coming. I'm going to talk today about clean data, what clean data means to your business, and how clean data is the result of both good technology and good people. First, a quick intro to who we are. My company is Winery Connect, and we're a family business offering virtual IT services to wineries for almost 10 years now. Our first customer was Hosmer Winery back in 2013, and they're still a happy customer. I was just talking to Tunker Hosmer yesterday, and he told me to tell you to call him if you've got any questions about us, which I take as a good sign. Technically, we're what's called a managed service provider, or MSP. And you can read more about us on our website, but briefly, our goal is to become part of more and more winery families and act as their combined virtual IT department. If you think about it, what's in an IT department, it's people plus technology in that order. Wineries are complex operations which use a lot of different technology depending on what they do, and that technology changes all the time. The heart of Winery Connect is the people side, which is our Grape Squad. It's the Grape Squad's job to stay on top of IT for you so your staff are free to make great wine and engage consumers. When I spoke at EWE, let me see, is this, oh yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll switch. When I spoke at EWE on Master Data Management in 2020, I did a very deep dive into the history of technology and how we ended up where we are in terms of data being so messy in most organizations. I'm not going to repeat what I said then. There's a video of that on our website if you'd like to check it out. This time I'm going to flip all the way the other end of the equation and start by talking about what good data and good IT can lead to, which is what's called a business dashboard. A business dashboard is really just like a car dashboard. It's a bunch of indicators to help you know what's going on with critical things, pure and simple. To give them a name, those indicators are what are known as key performance indicators, or KPIs. In the case of a car, there are just really a few critical KPIs that we all know about and agree on because they're obvious. Where for a business, it can be a bunch of the ones, there can be a bunch of them, like the ones I have listed here, which are some example production control KPIs, wineries, which are also vineyards, might care about. There's a lot behind how KPIs work, which I'll get into later on, but for now, I'm going to jump right to the end of the story and talk about business dashboarding. Depending on the size of your business dashboards can't be quite as simple as a car dashboard, but the same idea holds true. To show decision makers what they need to know as quickly and as vividly as possible to help them make decisions. This is an example vineyard overview dashboard from one of our partners, a company called Innovent, which has a fantastic production control solution we've integrated our technology with. What I really want to have a discussion about, and I'm going to open this up in a minute to do this, is what sort of business dashboard makes sense to you. I've had a discussion going on for some years with a great guy from Farm Credit East who's really helped me understand the business. I want to be clear that what you're seeing here is truly a draft. I haven't even had a chance to go over this with my friend at Farm Credit East, but I do know the kind of KPIs FCE produces. So this is my idea of how those might be represented in a live business dashboard. The basic idea here is that there are a few key things around the tasting room operation, which most wineries around here probably care about. Those of you who belong to wine trails might want to know something about how the wine trail is doing. And wineries who sell online or who distribute might have other KPIs they care about. Not trying to make this too much into an FCE commercial, but they do great work. And they have several benchmarking products they offer, which produce great charts like these. There's one really key thing they do though. And remember this, because I'm going to come back to this at the end of my presentation, and there will be a quiz. What FCE does is bring human intelligence to bear to help you better understand your business using your own data. I'm stealing my own thunder here, but that's really the main thing I want to get across today. There's a ton of great technology out there, and I guarantee you that you already have a ton of data about your business at your fingertips, which you can't properly leverage. I'm going to talk a lot today about technology to leverage all that data, but the fastest way to leverage all your data is sometimes just to bring in experts like FCE to take a look at it. So with that having been said, I'm going to go a bit abstract here and talk about some really broad ideas. The idea of a balanced scorecard first came around in 1987 as a way of measuring business performance in something of a standardized way across any particular industry. And in some of the early forms, really formally broke a business down into these 4 sets of KPIs to look at. The shareholder perspective, what people with skin in the game really see. The strengths perspective, where management does SWOT analyses and and all that, looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The innovation perspective, how can we keep creating value, hopefully more and more value with less and less effort. And importantly, how is our brand doing? What promises are we making, and do our customers see them and believe them? I don't claim to be an expert on balanced scorecarding. I did some consulting in the early 2000s where I first learned about them, but frankly, I've just started looking at how they can tie into a business dashboard way of looking at things. The key thing that's always intrigued me is the balanced scorecard idea of red, yellow, and green indicators to represent KPIs like these in this dummy dashboard. Now, I easily admit this all sounds pretty esoteric, so I was very pleased when I thought to Google winery balanced scorecard and found a ton of confirmation that this really is a thing that can be done. And in fact, some people have done it for particular purposes. There's academic research on it, and there's even some technology people have built. What I didn't see, and what I've been talking with my friend at Farm Credit East about, is the idea of a winery balanced scorecard which makes sense for East Coast wineries. This is what I want to have an open discussion about. Now, tasting rooms are a much bigger part of business models for many wineries around here, for instance, than they are on the West Coast. More and more wineries around here have wine clubs, which are growing quickly. I'm not going to get into any of the gory details behind the Farm Credit East calculations, but I do know a bit about what's behind the KPIs, as I showed in my dashboard earlier, so we can go back and take a look at that if we want. But mainly, I just want to have an open discussion. I have more slides I can go over behind getting into detail around what's behind the KPIs in terms of technology, and talk about some of the challenges wineries face in getting good data in the first place. And I plan to leave some time at the end for more discussion. But as the old saying goes, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So what's most critical to your operation? How do you define red, yellow, and green for the KPIs you care about? And one particularly interesting specific question I know many of our customers have struggled with is how to count tasters, given the fact that the number of people who come into your tasting room is such a great piece of data to have. So with that, Tunker, and how far are we in? All right, 10 minutes. That's not bad. Under 10 minutes because we didn't get.
No, it's good, Sam.
Yeah.
So far, so good. I think that's, it's a great introduction. You got people interested and you got them thinking. That's good.
Good. So let's have a discussion. What do you think? What's most critical to your operation?
Well, I think that, just most recently, what we look at is what I like to refer to as capture rate. So you have customers that come into your tasting room, and how much does your average customer spend, in the course of a day? And that can get skewed. We have a perfect example of it this past weekend. We had a Cuga Wine Trail event, and generally those event customers are, I would say, the capture rate is low for them. But we've changed the performance or the way the integration of these events so that they're a reservation, and we limit the number of people, and consequently the capture rate has soared. So, dollars per customer, the taste is gone up significantly. And, and that, I see that as a very key metric, because it not only scores your product itself, do you have a wide enough variety of products to interest, the wide variety of customers that you have. And then is your sales staff doing a good job of, basically getting the customer to purchase more or upsell, those sorts of, sales techniques. So, that's a pretty important KPI in itself right there, is what I would refer to as the capture rate. And, you're doing a good job if you can, keep that capture rate up into, whatever your personal because all wineries are different. So, and you can have in the course of one day, you can skew those numbers. But you have one customer that comes in and spends a whole bunch of money, and consequently, your capture rate, your KPIs is high. So you have to look at it in general.
That's awesome. So I'm hearing what you're saying, is that's right in the Farm Credit East benchmark, right? But I'd never heard it called capture rate. That's a great way of summing it up. And if you don't mind, I'll steal that and put it on the Winery Balance Scorecard thing, as that's the name of the KPI, right? Is capture rate.
And I think that we've been involved with Farm Credit actually. When the Farm Credit started their winery benchmark program, I'd like to think that I had a lot to do with that, because in my schooling, at Cornell, they Farm Credit East did benchmarking for dairy, was a huge part of their business, and still is. The lion's share of their business is the dairy industry. And so they had all the metrics and benchmarking for that. And so I asked them, well, why don't we do that for wineries? There's plenty of them around, and we can, judge ourselves against ourselves. And it's been very effective, I think. And it does point out each winery is different and has strengths and weaknesses. So, but having a benchmark is, it shows you where you can improve. And not necessarily how to improve,
Sure,
because that's an individual choice, but where areas that need help.
No, when Greg, I'm going to not use his name at Eastern Winery Exposition unless he happens to be there. I haven't heard if he'll be there, and I'm hoping he is, so he'll be part of the discussion. But it was real interesting having him explain to me some of the KPIs and how they do, as you say, show you where, and how he can help find errors, or problems, like, hey, wait, this number just doesn't make sense, so something's wrong with your data capture, or something's wrong with.
Exactly. And that happens for us frequently. He goes, why don't you dig back? Why don't you dig back and look at those numbers? Because something just doesn't seem right. So things stick out. And that's terrific. Yeah,
it's like an extra conscience, a little angel sitting on your shoulder, right? Like, hey, what's going on there?
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers are maybe lying, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So the dashboards mean nothing if you don't have good data. So
and consistent. If you do your data month to month, we submit our data once a month, and I dive through it, and I go, well, wait a minute, this number doesn't seem right, or boy, we really did good. Is this number really true?
Yeah.
So, and that's what it's all about.
So now for you guys, and I'm real interested in this. So the Farm Credit East benchmarking, and a lot of it is all around tasters, right? And it's how you count the tasters, I know is an open question, but is that true for you guys, that tasters and the tasting room is really the most? I mean, you do a ton of distribution. I don't know about, a lot of wineries, it's the online wine club and stuff. So, but you think it's true that the East Coast wineries in general, tasters and the tasting room is a much bigger part of the business?
I would say that with the, basically the COVID climate that we've had, that tasting room has less emphasis. And your DTC, direct to consumer, has been, a much bigger part of the game. And, that, and that's not going away.
Mm-hmm.
And the methods for, wine club, oh my gosh, I think every winery in the Finger Lakes has a wine club. And those are good. That's if they can't come to see you go to see them. And it's working out just fine. So that in the case of sales at the door, sure, they're important and they're coming back. But we really found out that being able to reach out to, customers that may have had visited you, the importance of your mailing list and your customer list is, so important. And is it accurate? And are those names good? Are those email addresses good? And then you can just take it, as far down the line as you want, how you want to embrace your customers through various levels of, if you spend more, you get more, all sorts of games like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, customers getting the customer data clean is the core thing in master data management in this, and that's what it's always the holy grail kind of thing, and that's a bunch of the rest of the presentation. I sort of drive,
and that's what you do.
Yeah, that's what we try to do.
Right, and I think that it's so important, and having a good system to manage that data and clean it up and keep it clean is so important today.
In terms of, this is sort of, like I said, this is my guess at what a graphical dashboard on top of the Farm Credit East, benchmarking data would look like. And you can see, like, in terms of these are the things in the tasting room: the wine sales, bottle sold, tasting fees, total sales, and then the per taster sort of lens on that, how many and then same thing with shipping online. You got those three. Is that, you feel like that's the right set? Are there others that you would like to see?
No, I think you got it covered right there. That's that's the key of the you've got your wine sales at the door, you got your direct sales, and then of course there's also wholesale, which you can't ignore that. And that's, do you sell direct, or do you have a wholesaler that represents you and sells your product for you? I mean, those are the only real avenues that we have in this, regulated alcohol industry.
Let's dig into that for a second there, because I said it in my sort of talk track there. I said, distribution is another one that, you care about, but that actually isn't part of the Farm Credit East benchmarking thing. And so if you were to look at your wholesale operation, what would be the top few things you care about there? Would it be the same thing: wine sales, bottles sold, average price per bottle, or total sales, or is there anything else like that?
That's about it. No, Sam, that's about it. And I can tell you that any winery that has a distributor, a wholesale distributor, there's lots of companies that do that. They'll tell you. You don't have to tell them. They will tell you. They can tell you. Depending on what company you have. Some go into it very, very deep. Some just say, your percentage of sales over the period from the year before, or whatever period you choose, is up or down, and how much percentage wise. All distributors should do that. Otherwise they'd be out of business.
Nice. I'm wondering, if and the things that are popping in my head, I don't know if these bubble up to the level of a dashboard or a balanced scorecard or anything. I know one of the questions people ask is, when do you try and open up a new state? When you're talking about distribution or this kind of thing, is that like, let's sort of unpack that. What do you look at when you if you're thinking about opening up a new state or going through that?
I'm no expert on that, Sam. Our distribution and we only have distribution in 4 states. So, I'm no expert on that, believe me. And distribution in other states takes feet on the ground too. You just don't, we're going to, hire a distributor in Illinois and they're going to sell a lot of wine for us. Well, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, you got to have your own rep.
You got to go there. You got to spend some time in that market and, be willing to do that.
Yeah. You have to have your own rep on the other side of the distributor, right?
You bet.
Yeah. My uncle did that. That was one of the things he did a long time ago.
Yeah. Yep. That's I know that. Yeah. That's the way it works.
Interesting. All right. Anything else? Like, what do you think about? Let's jump way up. What do you think about the idea of a dashboard, like a graphical thing that would show you this stuff? Would this be of interest to you?
It's great.
Okay.
That a picture's worth 1,000 words. And
Mhm.
when we do a sales report at the end of the day, there's a little chart, there's a dashboard, and
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
And
Because no,
you
sorry.
know,
Go
you
ahead.
can, your product lineup, it helps you examine those things. Are we making the right wines? How come all of a sudden this type of wine is selling like crazy? We didn't see that. The news didn't forecast it, but we're seeing it. And, check with your neighbors. Are you seeing a big increase in such and such a style of wine? And, that the game's always changing.
Yeah, yeah, no, like I say, I haven't talked to Greg about this yet. I just sort of sketched this up. But this is literally everything he's got in his report. But in his report, it's all text, and there's a lot of words repeated, and it's a big block of text. And I'm like, wow, this really could be, a really. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I don't need to dream up 50 other ways of doing this. These are the numbers, and visualize them nicely, and people can use them.
People have been selling wine for a long time. And like you say, if you have this data, these charts and graphs that show, basically in color, black, it shows. It's a very simple thing to understand. And there are numbers that represent, in the graph, and you can say, well, our sweet wine sales jumped so much percent. Huh. Are we making enough? I mean, it's all, forecasting, like what's the future going to hold? Nobody, you tell me, and we'll get rich.
Yeah, that's it. All right. Well, then, anything else you want to? So yeah, the other sort of building on this is the graphic dashboard. What about the idea of a winery balanced scorecard? Is that something that it sounds to you like feasible? Because and now that I'm just sort of saying this off the top of my head, you said it just a second ago. Every winery is different, really. So is there something we could come to that's a winery balance scorecard? I mean, Farm Credit East has their couple things where they say, how do you compare against other wineries on the trail for these, number of tasters, tasting room bottles sold. But do you think there's like a winery balance scorecard? And what do you think about the idea of red, yellow, green? Like, like to have, do you have anything like that?
Well, yeah, I think that's great. I mean, that's just another way of saying, what your performance indicator,
Yeah.
and colors are great. That's fine.
All right.
I think it's terrific. Yeah, you're right on track. You're going to do fine tomorrow, Sam.
All right. Awesome. Well, I will jump ahead then. And like I say, I feel like that could be the whole presentation, and that's fine. But if yeah, we're still like 25 minutes into this, so and I figure I've got an hour, so and the rest
Well,
of
you'll
this
get
is,
a lot of questions from the
oh
crowd,
yeah, yeah,
and
this will take
and
a lot
that'll be
longer.
good. And that's the key right there. And that leads to more discussion. There's a whole lot of things that we just haven't talked about that, you can, like I say, you can delve right deep into it. You can do the whole thing on just direct to consumer if you wanted to. I mean, you
Sure.
could take an hour talking about that. I'm no expert on that. I mean, and I'm not an expert on anything, but I think that you'll be received quite well.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I'm finally learning, I think, I hope, to listen and to
Yeah.
ask questions. My neighbor, it turns out, has built a bunch of sales organizations. So I've been talking to him recently, and he finally got me to understand it's not about you telling a story. It's about you understanding sort of the set of stories that your customers are in, and asking questions so that you hear from your customer what story they're in, and then connecting, and sort of this having in your head this hierarchy, doing sort of loyally open questions. Like, I'm not trying to lead the witness, tell me what you care about. And yeah.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to mention, Sam, is that, inquiries from the crowd are worth their weight in gold. You can, throw the question out. So if you had to narrow it down to one major metric, KPI, what would you narrow it down to? One? Which one you think is the most important? And some people will be, they're going to be all over the place. It'll be quite interesting.
And for you, it's capture rate, which is dollars per
Yeah,
customer,
capture rate.
per
How much
taster.
each person spell. That's a key one for me.
Mhm. All right. Well, let me, I'll run through the rest of this, but this is really more as it says, this is behind the KPIs. This is now getting into the background of things. So you've got data, right, in the end that you've gathered. Everybody knows about reports. Reports give you clear answers to simple questions over short time periods. So you say, what was for instance, in Revel, they've got the operations report, that everybody's loved since they brought it on. Simple report where you give it a date range and you say, what do my operations look like? Sales by class, gross profit, net taxes, that kind of thing. So that's reporting everybody knows about. And that can take lots of forms, like the Farm Credit East benchmark report is a bunch of data. It's a report that you get, a PDF that you get and then there's things like we've been doing for Lakewood, this monthly interstate excise tax report, where we're taking their data and making sure it's right and then transforming it into the form that they use for they can figure out what their excise state tax is.
Oh yeah, let's not forget taxes.
Yeah, yep.
There's plenty of them.
That's they get their piece. And then behind, but with KPIs, the idea is they're sort of ideally, or they can be a higher level kind of thing. And this is where you get kind of really esoteric. There's this idea of a data cube where, you're talking not about a short time period, you're talking about potentially years of data. And we're distilling it down into this cube that you can manipulate the cubes to produce particular metrics around things. And these really, I did this back in the late 90s or in around 2003 with the energy space, looking at time of use data. So if you're talking about temperature readings, and we're not here yet, but the idea here is you take things like real-time data, temperature readings throughout the season, all sorts of stuff, bake it in with the simple data around your reporting. So then you've got this cube of like really dense information that you can spin and twist to get good data. To get real interesting knowledge and information, intelligence. Then, the question is, how do we feed these cubes, or how do you even feed the reports, or even simple dashboard stuff? Well, this is what we're talking about, getting good data into the systems and into the reporting. And there's going to be all sorts of different systems, operational systems, some pieces of software, depending on how wineries work. They're going to change over time. And this is where, we come in. We say good IT infrastructure can help you consistently collect that and report on it. Oops. And because wineries at the highest level really are generally similar. You're making the wine, putting it in a bonded warehouse. You're selling it through multiple different heavily regulated channels, and in the end, typically accounting for all of that in QuickBooks. And the key to really managing this is understanding your data, which is your customers' products and orders across those channels. And the tricky bit is why, and then eventually, doing your regulatory compliance and business intelligence type stuff around the data. The traditional way this happened is you had a big old enterprise system, the mainframe that had everything you needed. The problem is technology has changed. You've now got 50 different web-based systems, mobile systems, but also wineries are just such complicated operations. You've got agriculture, you've got manufacturing of a controlled substance, you've got distribution, you want to sell online, particularly with a wine club. And then a lot of times you've got tasting rooms, restaurants, weddings and events, and so on. So there just is no system to handle all of it. That's the basic thing we've realized. And so you need to use best of breed, something like Revel for point of sale, something like WooCommerce, Shopify, Nexternal for online, and something depending on the size of your operation and your requirements, you might want to have some software to manage production control. And then you really need somebody to tie it all together and to try and help you get that data clean for reporting from across these different systems, and help staff use the different systems to capture the data. So that's what we mean when we're talking about a winery business ecosystem that feeds the KPIs. Now I'm going to just really quickly go super abstract. There's this company, Qlik, Qlik, excuse me, that a old partner of mine, actually, guy I've known since 1995. He was my boss at Computer Sciences Corporation in 1995. And he now works at this company, Click, which is one of the leaders on data analysis. And what they do, this whole data cube I'm talking about, they go a level beyond that. They have AI algorithms that pull all your data in, and they will automatically create these cubes, a bunch of cubes based on your data and around commerce, so to more automatically get to, and you know, I don't know yet exactly how far this goes or how easy it really is, but I've seen some of it. In like a quick call, my friend showed me, and we plugged their technology into VinESB, and we sucked in some data, and we really quickly had some interesting stuff showing, like this. Like, this is an example dashboard that can come together really quickly out of their thing, and you can really quickly say, show me trends in this, that, or the other thing, and it can be going over years of data. So we've got like almost 10 years of your data that we can now do this with, and just pull it in and say, over the last 10 years, how did certain things trend? And that's what I'm working on now, and I'm hoping, you know, within this year for sure, maybe even, you know, first half of this year, I'll have some ability to say, we'll look at all your data from the whole time you've been a customer, and help you ask questions, you know, say, and you know, get help, you know, and ask you what questions you want to ask of all that data. So that's the really exciting point that we're at now.
You know, there's a lot of, Sam, there's a big difference between, you know, as a owner of a business, what you want the business to do and what the business should do. You know, there's a difference there. You can get misled. You can have these, and you know, strong desires. Oh, we want to be, you know, really strong in this, and that you might be just barking up the wrong tree. And so, you know, that your feelings guide you. Don't let them guide you. Your business should guide you.
That's it. You got to run the business by the numbers. And the question is always, what are those numbers, and how do you make sure the numbers are right? You know, and you know, what numbers are you running your business by? That's it. That's in a nutshell.
Nice.
So, and this is that. So now coming back to, so that's the you know, highest abstraction. This idea that, you know, we've got this great ecosystem we put together. It's pulling in data over years, and we're going to come up with these artificially intelligent driven, you know, hypercubes that'll show us stuff in pretty colors on a dashboard. Taking it, bringing it right back down to ground. You know, one of the basic problem is clean data, and there's a lot of challenges. You know, when I talked in 2020, I went over it in a lot more detail. The challenges in product data, order data, customer data across different clouds, and this kind of stuff. But there really are, and I went into the limits. There's just a limit to how much technology can ever do, because people are involved. People are entering data into the system. People are, you know, and the problems are just complicated. So there is software out there that will do true master data management, where it'll pull in your data. There's a thing called Prophecy. I've actually worked with them a bit at Optimex, and they'll pull in your data and show it to you. Say, these are all the customer records that we think match. You know, these look like they might be the same customer, and they'll give, you know, your staff an option to say, click on it and say, yeah, let's merge those are the same customer. Let's merge them with all their order history and everything. And we're moving towards, you know, being able to do that with Revel and external and everything. But you know, these are still really abstract technology things. The real thing, and I hinted at this earlier, is people, right? You know, that's, you can go a long way. You know, technology is only going to do so much, and particularly around master data management, there's just, it can't do a lot. The data's, you really need people to look at the data, like Farm Credit East does, and like the Grape Squad does, and say, you know, let's look at this with some common sense, and try and just make sure things look good. And we're getting to the point where we've even got levels of data mastery that we're looking at, between like system administrators who are just, you know how to use the different systems, Revel or an external, Excel experts. So these would be Grape Squad, you know, level 2 people who can dump an Excel spreadsheet out of Revel or any one of the other systems and really do some tricks in Excel to look at the data and say, you know, is this right? Is this not right? And then the level we've just come up with, and this is like within the last year, we just built this thing called the data mastery module. So this is a module in VNESB that takes a bunch of stuff I was doing manually to look at data, this data health check, I think I've talked about. And I've sort of automated some of that, where you can export this stuff from, export customers, products, orders from, so those are the entity types, from Nexternal, from Revel, from, you know, whatever, those are from Shopify, those are the external systems. And you upload them in here. In fact, I'm finding a way now to avoid even having to go this step. You can just directly push them in. And then I've got these things I'm calling condition detections, which are really, you know, what are called SQL scripts, structured query languages, looking at the database and saying, what's missing from VNESB? Why, you know, it's sort of an independent check. VNESB was supposed to have pulled all these customers from Revel, but here's the spreadsheet from Revel. It doesn't match what VNESB has, you know, even just in terms of the basic, you know, Revel ID isn't in there. What's missing, you know, what's by email, what's live in Nexternal and not in Revel, you know, this kind of thing. So these conditions we're going to keep on adding to as we find problems that keep on happening with data that might be due to human error. It just might be normal course of business. You know, we've taught, you know, as you know, I mean, customer gives you an email address in the tasting room. They give you a different email address when they create an account online. There's no way for the system to know directly that that's the same customer. So that's the type of condition we'll try and detect, and then be able to eventually have a button where you push and say, yeah, that customer from the online store is the same as this customer in the Revel point of sale system. Let's
luck
merge
with
those.
that one.
Yeah. That's the holy grail. That's the holy
Oh,
grail.
for sure.
We're not quite there yet. So that's it. Those are the rest of my slides. That's my whole presentation. And then I figure open it up again.
It's going to be good, Sam. You're going to get a lot of good questions from the crowd. And like I say, there's, you know, there's a whole lot of things that we haven't thought about that people will bring up to you. And they'll say, what about this case? Well, you just hit it right on the head here, where you get basically 2 email addresses for the same person. You know, that happens all the time, the time.
Yeah, it's just, there's no way around it. It's just normal course of business. Yeah.
You're going to be fine, Sam.
All right. Well, thank you very much for everything.
All right. Well, good luck tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All righty.
All right. Take care.
I'll see you.
All right.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
I was just helping him out. He needed